So many things have been happening this last couple of weeks regarding guns, the Second Amendment, and the cosmic battle between your liberties and security. What do we do? What do we make of the Uvalde shooting or the Highland Park shooting on July 4th on Independence Day, or even the recent assassination of Shinzu Abe, the former Prime Minister of Japan? And it has reignited a fire in this conversation on where do your rights begin? And not only that, but where do your rights come from? Let's dive in today, all about guns.
Say hello to my little friend!
In case you've been living under a rock, there's been a lot of talk the last couple of weeks about guns. Assault weapons, or military grade weapons, as our politicians so often say.
This is an AR-15. This is a weapon of war, a weapon of mass destruction.
Today's video is just going to be scratching the surface on this conversation, but we're going to be talking about, do you have a right to self-defense? And if that's so, what kind of weapons can you use? Because when the founders wrote the Second Amendment, they had inspiration for that. And today we're going to go into the inspiration behind that. So get ready and buckle up for today's episode with I Want a Belt. I Want a Belt is a patriotic belt company that is making the best belts on the market. And they're made from custom Italian leather. Woo. If you or someone you know needs a new belt, which 90% of people do, I know I need a new belt. So head over to iwantabelt.com and grab your handcrafted, made in the USA from Italian leather belt. Not from Target. Don't buy your belt from Target. Buy it from I Want a Belt. Why would you want to support woke companies? Support patriotic companies. So, back to the Second Amendment.
So anyways, let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Where did our founders get the inspiration for it? And do you know what the Second Amendment is? Because apparently, a lot of our politicians do not. The Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, necessary, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Think about it. Our founders wrote this because Britain's troops were killing our people and also quartering their troops in their homes. Our founding fathers, when they came up with the Constitution, I believe by divine providence, put all the power on the people. That's why it says in the Declaration, we the people. Because we the people are the authority in this land, not the government. Bad things happen when only the bully has weapons. If only the bully has weapons, it becomes a massacre. If both sides have weapons and the same weapons, then it becomes a negotiation. And that's what we have with our government. Now, is there a right to self-defense? The reason I'm bringing this up is a lot of people, even so-called Christians, think you don't have a right to self-defense because we're supposed to turn the other cheek.
Because it is in the Bible not to wrestle your neighbor.
Right? Wrong. First off, that verse is taken way out of context all the time. But second of all, the reason why our founders wrote the Second Amendment, they got the inspiration from the Bible. And the reason I keep bringing up the Bible is if you've watched any of this show before, I think I've done a pretty good job of setting up our foundation and helping you guys understand, hey, we're built on biblical values. Whether you believe or don't, the reason why we have it so good is because we're based on the Bible. Because our laws come from the Bible. And so probably good to know what it says and to get to know the author of it, the Lord Jesus. But there's three verses I want to talk about when it comes to self-defense. The first one is in the book of Exodus. Check this out. In Exodus chapter 22, if a thief is caught while breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there will be no blood guiltiness on his account. This is where we base our laws off of, where if someone breaks in your home and is threatening you and you defend yourself, you are absolved of any murder. It's called self-defense. Murder is a lot different than self-defense, obviously. So you have a right if someone comes in your home or if someone threatens you, like legitimately life-threatening situations. Breaking in will be one of those. But check this out. In the next story, we're going to learn about Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a Jew who went back to his homeland to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. But he had enemies come against him at that time. Now, Nehemiah was a man of God, but while he was building the wall, he had to have a shovel, a plow in one hand to build the wall, and a sword in the other to fight off the enemies, because the enemies would be there very quick, so they had to be ready. Those who were rebuilding the wall and those who carried burdens took their load, with one hand doing the work and the other holding the weapon. As for the builders, each wore his sword girded at his side as he built. This is a biblical account, a man of God who says, no, turning the other cheek, like if my enemy attacks me, turning the other cheek, that's not what Jesus intended. Jesus did not intend us to be a doormat. You have a biblical right, a godly right, to defend your home, to defend your livelihood, and defend your family. And then the third example I have is in Luke chapter 22. This is actually Jesus talking, and he says to his disciples, but now whoever has a money belt is to take it along, likewise also a bag, and whoever has no sword is to sell his coat and buy one. Jesus says to go buy a sword. Why? In the next chapter, he says those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Right, so he's combating this ideology that says, I always want to fight. I always want to make war. Like, we're going to destroy, we're going to conquer, we're going to do all this, right? He says, no, that's the wrong mindset to have. But he did not say that owning a sword was wrong. I believe what Jesus is getting at here is that owning a sword is good when it comes to the right to self-defense. Now, this right to self-defense, some people will say, well, I guess you have a biblical right to a sword or to a spear, but not a gun, right? Because guns are bad. Well, I want you to look at this right here. We're gonna watch and see if the gun shoots itself. Right. And this highlights a really important point. I find it hilarious because the same people that want to take guns away from citizens say, well, only police and the government should have AR-15s and handguns and all this and semi-automatics and assault weapons. But then they also want to defund the police. So they don't want the police because they don't trust the police, but you want to defund the citizens?
Yes, of course he knew you wouldn't believe the truth even if you told it to you.
Logic doesn't make sense. What it comes down to in each of these horrific stories, the Uvalde shooting, the Highland Park shooting, and the assassination of the former Japanese prime minister, whether guns are outlawed or not, the heart of man remains the same. Heart of man, and this is something our founders understood, is desperately wicked and sinful, and can only be regenerated by the living God through Jesus. And if you're not going to have a society that's going to honor his commands and say there's something bigger than me outside of this world, then you're going to have a society that goes into chaos. You're going to have a society that takes right and wrong into their own hands and does not leave justice up for the Lord. This is what Cain and Abel did, and this is exactly the same story that's playing out today. Japan has a ban on all guns, but this guy who shot Prime Minister Shinzu Abe built his own gun. It goes to show you that guns are not the problem. The heart of man is the problem, and you can try to ban it, you can put a band-aid on it, you can try to do anything you want. The government, the powers that be, want to highlight these stories to get you to say you're selfish for having your freedoms. You're selfish for having your liberties because your rights are causing all this.
This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you.
Don't fall for it. It's gaslighting, and it's a lie, and it's doublespeak. Your right to own a firearm and your right to defend yourself are the only things that are stopping the government from fully taking over. I believe here in America, the government didn't go door to door, make sure we were staying inside like Australia, because we have guns, and in Australia they don't. Listen to me very carefully. You are not selfish for having liberties. You are not selfish for wanting to keep what God has given you. If you give up your freedom and your liberties for security, you're not going to get anything. The only thing that's going to happen, you and the people that you represent, your family, your friends, will become less free while the government continues to enslave you.
Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. And they say if we'll only avoid any direct confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love us. All who oppose them are indicted as warmongers. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. Not an easy answer, but simple. If you and I have the courage to tell our elected officials that we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right.
And this is the genius of our founding fathers. And this is why the Second Amendment, the First Amendments hold all the others together. Peace through strength. And this is what Ronald Reagan talked about. He said, peace through strength. You don't stand up to a bully by giving him your lunch money every day. And it's not better to live on your knees than to die on your feet. If there's nothing worth dying for, then what is there to live for?
We cannot buy our security, our freedom from the threat of the bomb, by committing an immorality so great as saying to 1 billion human beings now enslaved behind the Iron Curtain, give up your dreams of freedom, because to save our own skins, we're willing to make a deal with your slave masters. Alexander Hamilton said, a nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one.
Don't fall for the lie that the government knows what's best for you. God has entrusted you to know what is best for your life and to seek his wisdom, like our founding fathers did, on how best to govern your life according to his laws. That's going to make you prosperous, healthy, wise, and happy. That is church and state today. Send this to somebody who maybe doesn't know about guns. And the best thing I can say, go shooting. Take a firearms class. Learn how to shoot, learn how to defend yourself. My first time I shot, I was a little scared, but once you get used to it and once you understand how the gun works and the gun safety laws that go with that, it actually becomes something you highly respect and that you're highly grateful for. God bless you. My name is Timothy Johnson for Red Liberty Media. This has been Church and State.